A millionaire YouTuber disguised himself as a homeless person to test his employees, and the result was shocking. He went to the front door of his own company asking for help. More than 50 people walked past him that morning. 50 employees who had worked for him for years, who received salaries from him, who ate at the year-end parties he paid for. And of all these people, do you know how many stopped to help? Do you know how many offered a plate of food? A glass of water? A kind word? One. Just one. And it wasn't a manager. It wasn't a director. It wasn't anyone who had a high position or a fat salary. It was the janitor, the most humble woman in the entire company. What she did that day changed everything, not just her life, but the lives of thousands of people around the world. And the twist in this story, what happened after the video went viral, nobody, absolutely nobody expected. Stay until the end, because I promise you will cry. You will be moved, and you will rethink how you treat the people around you. Jimmy Donaldson was 29 years old and lived in Chicago. He owned Tech Solution, one of the largest technology and digital marketing companies in the United States. But what really made him famous was his YouTube channel. 80 million subscribers, videos that surpassed 50 million views. He did everything, crazy challenges, good pranks, but mainly he helped people. He had already built houses for families who lived on the streets. He had already paid for surgeries for sick children. He had already renovated entire public schools, donated food boxes to thousands of families. He was known as the most generous YouTuber in America. People loved him. But behind all that fame and success, Jimmy hid a deep anguish. He had built a huge company, 3 floors of modern offices in downtown Chicago, designer furniture, game room, gourmet kitchen, gym, everything top-notch. 200 employees working there. And in recent months, Jimmy had noticed something that bothered him a lot. The company had lost its soul. In the early years when it was just him, his partner Marcus, and 3 more employees, everything was different. They were a family. They had lunch together. They talked. They helped each other. They laughed at each other's bad jokes. But now with 200 employees, things had changed. There were cliques. There was gossip. There were people stabbing others in the back. There was unfair competition. And worst of all, there was a lot of disrespect. Jimmy saw this every day. He saw managers treating interns badly. He saw coordinators being rude to the cleaning staff. He saw people smiling to his face, but being horrible to those they thought had no power. One day on a Tuesday morning, Jimmy was in his office on the top floor. The office had a huge glass wall that overlooked the street. He loved standing there watching the movement. It was almost noon. Lunchtime. He saw the tech department crew leaving. About 10 young guys, dressed casually, talking loudly, laughing, clearly going to lunch at some expensive restaurant in the area. Right behind them came Miss Maria, 62 years old, short, thin, gray hair tied in a simple bun, blue janitor uniform, carrying an old cloth bag. She walked to a small bench in the building's outdoor area. She sat there. She opened the bag and took out a simple plastic lunch container. Rice, beans, a small piece of chicken. She started eating alone. Nobody greeted her. Nobody sat near her. Groups of employees leaving the building passed by her as if she were invisible, as if she didn't even exist. Jimmy felt a tightness in his chest. He had known Miss Maria since day 1 of the company. She had been the first employee hired, 5 years ago, when the company still operated in a small 2-room office. Back then, it was just Jimmy, Marcus, Julia who handled finances, Peter who edited videos, and Miss Maria doing cleaning. And every day, at noon sharp, the 5 of them would sit at the old office table and have lunch together. Miss Maria always brought food from home, and always brought a little extra to share with everyone. Donuts, cheese bread, homemade cake. She treated everyone like family. She asked how the weekend was, if everything was okay at home. She gave advice when someone was sad. Jimmy remembered a specific day. He had fought badly with his girlfriend at the time, had ended the relationship. He arrived at the office devastated. Miss Maria noticed right away. "Sit here, son," she had said, and she spent the whole morning listening to him vent, making coffee, speaking words of comfort. That day she said a phrase that Jimmy never forgot. "It doesn't matter how much money you have, what position you hold, or how many people follow you on the internet. What matters is how you treat those who can do nothing for you, because that's where you see true character." Jimmy had never forgotten those words, but looking now at Miss Maria sitting alone on that bench, ignored by everyone, He realized that the company had forgotten. He picked up his cell phone and called Marcus. Marcus was his best friend since childhood. Company partner. The only person Jimmy fully trusted. "What's up, man?" Marcus answered. "Is everything okay?" "Marcus, I have an idea," Jimmy said. "And when you talk like that, I already get worried." Marcus laughed. "What is it this time?" "I want to test the employees. I want to see who really has empathy here." "Test how?" "I want to disguise myself as a homeless person and go to the company entrance asking for food." There was a long silence on the other end. "Are you serious right now?" "Completely. I want to see how people react. I want to know if I hired good people or fake people." "Man," Marcus said slowly, "this could go very wrong. What if nobody helps? It's going to be very embarrassing, especially for the employees afterward." "That's exactly what I want to find out," Jimmy replied. "I'd rather know the truth now than continue thinking everything's fine when it's not." Marcus sighed deeply. "Okay, I'll help you. But we do this right, with hidden cameras. And I'm going with you. Deal." They scheduled it for Thursday of the same week. 2 days to prepare. Jimmy went to a thrift store in a distant part of town where nobody knew him. He bought old clothes, jeans all torn and dirty, a shirt that used to be white but was now more gray from so much dirt, a large old coat full of stains and with a broken zipper, a pair of completely destroyed sneakers with holes on both sides and the sole coming off. Then he went to a costume shop. He bought a fake gray beard, a wig with long messy hair, special contact lenses that made his eyes look somewhat opaque and lifeless. He rubbed dirt on the clothes. He rubbed charcoal under his nails to make it look like he hadn't washed his hands in days. On Wednesday night, Jimmy could barely sleep. He kept thinking about everything. Was he doing the right thing? Was it fair to test people like this? But every time he thought about giving up, he remembered the scene of Miss Maria eating alone, of employees being rude to those they considered inferior, and he knew he had to do it. Thursday dawned with overcast weather, gray sky, light drizzle. Jimmy woke up at 5 in the morning. He took a long shower. He knew that after getting all dirty, he wouldn't be able to take another one until the experiment was over. At 6:30, Marcus arrived at his house. He brought professional equipment. Tiny micro cameras. Some were going to be sewn into Jimmy's clothes. Others were going to be hidden in objects. They had bought an old baseball team cap. They glued a tiny camera to the front, disguised as if it were just a detail of the fabric. They put another camera in a coat button, and one more inside an old cloth bag that Jimmy was going to use to ask for money. When Jimmy finished getting dressed and putting on makeup, it was 7:30 in the morning. He went to the mirror, and he was shocked. The person looking back wasn't him. It was a real homeless person, someone who seemed to have been living on the streets for months, dirty, messy hair falling over his face, disheveled beard, lifeless eyes, filthy clothes, dirty hands. He even smelled bad, because Marcus had the idea of spraying a little vinegar and other things on the clothes to give that strong smell of someone who doesn't bathe. "Man," Marcus said, looking at him, "your own mother wouldn't recognize you like this." Jimmy looked at himself in the mirror one more time and felt something strange in his chest. That image wasn't just a costume. It was the reality of millions of Americans, people he saw on the streets every day, and whom he had to admit with great shame he almost always ignored. "When was the last time you stopped to talk to a homeless person?" Marcus asked, as if reading his thoughts. Jimmy lowered his head. "It's been a long time, a very long time. That's right. We criticize others but do the same thing. Today you're going to understand what it's like to be invisible." They left at 8 o'clock. Marcus driving his car, a popular model that didn't attract attention. Jimmy crouched in the back seat so nobody would see him. They went to downtown Chicago. They parked 2 blocks from the company. Marcus had a professional camera inside a backpack. He was going to be filming from afar, pretending to just be a guy on his phone. "If something goes very wrong, I'll come in and get you out of there," Marcus said. "It won't go wrong," Jimmy replied, but his voice was shaking. It was 8:40 when Jimmy positioned himself. The Tech Solution entrance was on a busy street. The building was impressive. 10 floors of mirrored glass reflecting the gray sky. Huge logo at the entrance with golden letters. Tech Solution, Innovation and Excellence. Automatic glass door. Modern reception visible from outside. Jimmy sat on the ground next to the entrance door. He leaned his back against the cold wall. He placed in front of him an old plastic cup that Marcus had gotten from the trash. He pulled the hood of his coat to cover part of his face, and he waited. It didn't take long. It was almost 9 o'clock. Entry time. The first employees started to arrive. A group of 3 guys. Jimmy recognized them. They were from the sales department. Andrew, Philip, and Luke. Always well-dressed, always talking about football and cars. They were laughing at some joke. Jimmy raised his trembling hand toward them. "Excuse me, sir," he said in a weak, dragging voice. "A coin? Anything helps." The 3 didn't even look. They continued talking about last weekend's game. They walked straight past, as if Jimmy didn't exist. Jimmy felt a first stab of pain, not physical pain. Pain from being ignored, from being treated as if he were nothing. More employees arrived. 2 women Jimmy knew well, Beatrice and Camilla, both from HR, always very friendly in meetings, always smiling, always talking about empathy and company values. "Please, miss," Jimmy said, extending his hand. "I'm hungry, very hungry. I haven't eaten anything since yesterday." Beatrice looked at him and made a disgusted face. "You," she whispered to Camilla, but loud enough for Jimmy to hear. "He stinks." "Let's go." Camilla pulled her friend by the arm. "Ignore him. He's probably on drugs. Could be dangerous." The 2 quickened their pace and entered the building. Jimmy took a deep breath. He remembered Miss Maria's words. That's where you see true character, when the person can do nothing for you. During the next hour, it was emotional torture. Employee after employee arrived. Some came by car and parked in the building's garage. Others came by Uber, others on foot, and all, absolutely all, ignored Jimmy. There was a woman, Fernanda from finance, who looked at him with pity. Jimmy thought she would help. She even opened her purse. But then she looked at her watch, saw she was late, and ran inside. There was a guy, Tiago, who was marketing manager, who was particularly cruel. Jimmy had promoted this guy a few months ago, had given him a $5,000 raise. At the promotion party, Tiago had made an emotional speech saying Jimmy was the best boss in the world, that he would never forget this opportunity. Now, Tiago was walking with a cup of coffee in his hand. Must have bought it at the corner coffee shop. Jimmy extended his hand. "Sir, please. Just a coin. I haven't eaten in days." Tiago stopped, looked at Jimmy from head to toe. And you know what he said? "Dude, I work. I wake up early, deal with traffic, work 8 hours a day. You should do the same instead of sitting there begging. Go get a job, bum." And he went into the building. Jimmy felt like crying, not because of the humiliation, but because he was seeing the true character of someone he had helped so much. More employees passed. Julia, who was one of the first employees and was now chief financial officer, walked right past without looking. Peter, editor-in-chief, walked right past. Renata, creative coordinator, walked right past. Paulo, systems analyst, walked right past. There were 53 people, Jimmy counted, 53 employees who worked for him, who had jobs because of him, who participated in the parties he paid for, who ate at the celebrations, who used the benefits he offered. 53 people, and not one stopped. Not one looked him in the eyes. Not one offered help. Jimmy started to think he had made a huge mistake, not in doing the test, but in trusting the wrong people, in hiring based on resume and interview, not on character. Did I build a company of heartless people? He thought. It was almost 10 o'clock. The rain was getting heavier. Jimmy was soaked, cold, and genuinely sad. That's when she appeared. Miss Maria was walking down the sidewalk, slow pace, carrying that same cloth bag. She must have taken 2 buses to get there because she lived far away. She wore an old rain cape, one of those transparent plastic ones they sell for $5. Wet hair stuck to her face. When she saw Jimmy sitting there in the rain, she stopped immediately. She stood looking for a few seconds. Then she approached. "Good morning," she said with a gentle voice. "Are you okay, sir?" Jimmy looked at her. Those kind eyes, that face full of wrinkles from someone who worked hard all her life, that genuine concern. "No, ma'am, I'm not," he replied with a truly choked voice. "I'm very hungry. It's been 2 days since I've eaten anything properly, and I'm very cold with this rain." Miss Maria put her hand on her chest, genuinely concerned. 2 days without eating? Oh my God, and this rain is freezing. You're going to get sick, sir. She looked around, then she looked at her bag. Then she made a decision. "Look," she said, opening the bag. "I brought my lunch from home to eat at work. It's nothing fancy. It's very simple, but it's real food. She took the lunch container out of the bag. Jimmy could see through the transparent plastic. White rice, beans, 2 small pieces of chicken, a little salad. "Do you want it?" Miss Maria asked, extending the container. Jimmy felt a knot in his throat so tight he could barely speak. "No, ma'am. I can't accept it. That's your lunch. You need to eat. You work. You can't go hungry." Miss Maria shook her head firmly. "Sir, I can buy a sandwich at the coffee shop on the corner. A ham sandwich doesn't cost much. But you're on the street. You have nowhere to get money right now. You need it more than me. Please, accept it." She placed the container in Jimmy's hands. Her hands were small and calloused. Hands of someone who worked hard all her life. Hands of someone who cleaned many houses, washed many dishes, mopped many floors. "Thank you so much, ma'am," Jimmy said, and the tears came. They weren't theatrical tears. They were real tears. Of emotion, of shame for having doubted that there were still good people. "You are very, very kind." "Don't mention it," Miss Maria said, smiling. "We have to help each other, right? Everyone goes through difficulties in life. Today, it's you. Tomorrow it could be me. That's how it works." She took a plastic fork from the bag. "Here, and eat everything, okay? You need to eat properly." Jimmy took the fork with trembling hands. Miss Maria was about to enter the building when he asked, "Do you work here, ma'am?" "I do," she replied. "I'm a janitor. I've been here for 5 years, since this company opened." "And how is it? Working here?" Miss Maria gave a somewhat sad little smile. She hesitated a bit. Then she responded honestly. "Look, the owner is a wonderful person. Very generous, pays on time, gives good benefits. I can't complain about him, but there are people inside who—" She paused, as if thinking whether she should continue. "Who what?" Jimmy encouraged. Miss Maria sighed. "There are people who treat us as if we were invisible, you know? Or worse, as if we were less than them. There are people who leave dirt on purpose. There are people who are rude. There are people who don't even say good morning. But it's okay. I do my job and go home. I earn my honest money. And that's what matters." Jimmy felt his heart tighten. "And you, ma'am? How do you treat people?" Miss Maria seemed surprised by the question. "Me? Well, I treat everyone the same, you know. It doesn't matter if it's the company owner or another janitor. Everyone is human. Everyone has feelings. Everyone deserves respect. My mother always taught me that. She worked as a housemaid all her life. And she would say, 'Maria, it doesn't matter what clothes the person is wearing or how much money they have. What matters is the heart. Treat everyone well and you'll never regret it.' And I always followed that advice." Jimmy couldn't say anything. He just stood there looking at her with total admiration. Miss Maria gave another smile. "Well, son, I need to go in. My shift starts at 10, and it's almost time. But look, if tomorrow you're here again and you're hungry, you can let me know and I'll bring more food, okay? We can't see others suffering." Jimmy could only nod. Miss Maria entered the building, and Jimmy sat there holding that humble lunch container. He looked at the food, rice, beans, chicken, simple food, but made with care and offered with a generous heart. He opened the container. The smell of the food rose, and Jimmy, who wasn't really hungry, felt like eating, not because of the food, but because of the meaning. He picked up the fork and ate a little. It was delicious, not because the food was gourmet, but because there was love there. In the car parked 2 blocks away, Marcus had tears streaming down his face. He had filmed everything. He had seen 53 employees ignoring Jimmy, and now he had seen this beautiful scene. He spoke into the communication point that Jimmy was using in his ear, hidden under the wig's hair. "Man," he said with a choked voice, "that was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." Jimmy didn't respond. He couldn't. He just sat there for a few more minutes eating that food, thinking about everything. Then he got up. He threw the wig and beard into a bag that Marcus had prepared for him. He wiped his face a bit with a tissue, and he entered the company. The receptionist, Clara, almost fell out of her chair when she saw him. "Mr. Jimmy?" she shouted. "My God, what happened to you, sir? Why are you wearing these clothes? Is everything okay?" "Everything's great, Clara," Jimmy said. "Everything's perfect. Call an emergency meeting. I want everyone, absolutely everyone, in the auditorium in 30 minutes. It's mandatory." "But sir, there are important presentations today," she started to say. Cancel everything. This is more important. He went up to his office. Marcus was already there. He had run. He transferred all the videos to Jimmy's computer. Man, Marcus said, what are you going to do? I'm going to show everyone who they really are, and I'm going to do justice. In 30 minutes, the auditorium was packed. 200 employees squeezed in, some sitting, others standing, all confused. Emergency meeting was never a good sign. Would there be mass layoffs? Was the company having problems? Jimmy went up on stage. He was still wearing those old dirty clothes. The employees looked surprised. Good afternoon, everyone, Jimmy began. I know you're wondering about this last-minute meeting. And wondering about my clothes, too. Nervous giggles through the auditorium. This morning, Jimmy continued, I did an experiment, a test. I wanted to know what kind of people work here with me. Absolute silence. He gestured to Marcus, who was operating the huge auditorium screen. The screen lit up. I dressed up as a homeless person, Jimmy said, and I sat at the door of our company for 2 hours, asking for help, asking for food, asking for anything. The images started to appear, Jimmy sitting on the ground, extending his hand. The auditorium fell into deathly silence. In those 2 hours, Jimmy continued, 53 employees walked past me, 53 people who work here, who receive salaries that I pay, who use the benefits we offer, who participate in our parties, who say they love working here. The images showed employee after employee passing, ignoring, avoiding, some even with disgusted faces. And do you know how many stopped to help? Jimmy asked. Silence. Do you know how many looked at me as if I were a human being? Nothing. Zero. None. People started to shift uncomfortably in their chairs. But there was one person, Jimmy said, and his voice became choked with emotion. One person who stopped. One person who not only looked at me, but treated me with dignity, with respect, with love. He paused the video on an image of Miss Maria approaching. And that person wasn't any manager. Wasn't any director. Wasn't anyone who makes $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a month. It was Miss Maria, our janitor, who makes minimum wage and a half, and who offered me her lunch, the only food she had to get through the day. The video continued, showing Miss Maria offering the container, speaking kindly, treating that homeless person like a human being. When the video ended, half the auditorium was crying. The other half had their heads down in shame. Miss Maria was in the back of the room, hand over her mouth, eyes wide, unable to believe that that homeless man was her boss. Jimmy continued, this company was built on values, generosity, empathy, respect, humility. But I see that many of you have forgotten those values, or maybe never had them. He looked around. I saw managers being rude to interns. I saw coordinators treating the cleaning staff badly. I saw people being fake, smiling to my face but being horrible to those they thought had no power. And this ends today. Murmurs through the auditorium. From now on, Jimmy announced, we're going to make changes. First change. Every manager and director will go through mandatory empathy and respect training. Second change. We're implementing 360-degree evaluation. Everyone evaluates everyone. Position doesn't matter. Third change. Any case of disrespect toward any employee of any level will result in serious warning, and repeat offense is immediate dismissal, no matter how good you are at your job. If you don't know how to treat people well, you don't belong in this company. The auditorium was in shock. Some employees were scared, others ashamed, others angry. And now, Jimmy said, his tone changing to something softer, I want to do something. Miss Maria, can you come up front, please? Miss Maria was trembling. She didn't understand anything. She thought she was in trouble. Was she going to be fired? Had she done something wrong? She walked slowly to the stage, her legs wobbly. Jimmy took her hand. Miss Maria, he said loudly for everyone to hear, you've worked here since day one, 5 years, always with dedication, always with honesty, always with a smile on your face even when things were difficult. Miss Maria, still confused, just nodded. And today, Jimmy continued, you taught me a lesson I'll never forget. You reminded me why I started this company. It wasn't to make money, it was to make a difference in people's lives, to treat everyone well. And you, with such a simple gesture, showed more character than all the fancy degrees and certificates we have here. Miss Maria started crying softly. Therefore, Jimmy took an envelope that Marcus had prepared. I'm promoting you. Starting today, you're no longer a janitor. You're the new Director of Culture and Human Values at Tech Solution. Shocked gasps through the auditorium. Miss Maria almost fainted. Mr. Jimmy, she stammered. I don't understand. I'm just a janitor. I don't have education. I don't know how to use computers properly. How am I going to be a director? You'll learn, Jimmy said gently, and your job won't be using computers. It will be ensuring that everyone here treats everyone with respect. You'll be responsible for the company culture. Because if there's anyone who knows how to treat people well, it's you. And there's more. Your salary will be $15,000 a month. Miss Maria sobbed loudly. 15,000? That's more than 10 times what I make. You deserve it, Jimmy said. And there's still more. He took another envelope. This is a purchase contract for an apartment, 2 bedrooms, in the neighborhood you choose, fully paid off, in your name, so you never have to pay rent again and can be free to do what you want with your money. Miss Maria fell to her knees on the stage, sobbing, shaking, unable to believe it. Jimmy knelt beside her and hugged her. You changed my life today, he whispered in her ear. You reminded me that there are still good people in the world. Thank you. The entire auditorium stood up and started to applaud. Some employees were applauding with genuine emotion, others with shame, others with tears in their eyes realizing how much they had failed. When Miss Maria managed to stand up and calm down a bit, she looked at the auditorium, looked at all those employees, and said something nobody expected. I accept the promotion. I accept the salary. And I accept the apartment. And I'm going to be the best values director you've ever seen. But I want to say something to all of you. I'm not better than anyone here. I just did what any person with a good heart would do. I treated another human being with respect, and I hope that from now on, all of you do the same. Not just with homeless people on the street, but with everyone. With the intern, with the office assistant, with whoever cleans the bathroom you use, with whoever prepares the food you eat. Everyone deserves respect. Everyone, even louder applause. This time, genuine. Even the proudest employees were applauding. The meeting ended, but the story was far from over. That same night, Jimmy edited the video. He put everything in. The employees ignoring, Miss Maria helping, the revelation in the auditorium, the promotion, the apartment, and he posted it on his channel. The title was simple. I disguised myself as homeless to test my employees. The result shocked me. In 6 hours, the video had 10 million views. In 12 hours, 20 million. In 1 day, 50 million. In 3 days, 80 million. It became news in newspapers, on TV, on websites around the world, and the comments were in the thousands. I cried buckets watching this video, one said. Miss Maria deserves the world, another commented. I'm going to start treating people better after this, someone wrote. This restored my faith in humanity, hundreds repeated. But the most incredible thing was still to come. 3 days after the video went viral, on a Monday morning, Miss Maria was in her new office. She still couldn't believe it was real, that she had an office, with a beautiful wooden desk, new computer, comfortable chair. She was looking out the window when there was a knock on the door. Come in, she said. The door opened. An elegant woman entered. She must have been in her early 40s. Well-groomed black hair, expensive, elegant clothes, perfect makeup. But her eyes were red as if she had been crying a lot. Excuse me, Miss Maria? The woman asked with a trembling voice. Yes, come in. How can I help you? The woman entered slowly, closed the door behind her, and then said something that made Miss Maria's world stop. My name is Patricia, and I'm your daughter. Miss Maria felt the floor disappear. What? The woman started crying. I'm your daughter. The daughter you had to give up for adoption when you were 16 years old. Miss Maria put her hand to her mouth. Her legs failed. She had to sit down. No. It can't be. It can, Patricia said. And she took documents from her purse. My birth certificate, the adoption papers, and this. She took out an old photo. A photo of a 16-year-old girl holding a newborn baby in the hospital. Miss Maria took the photo with trembling hands. It was her, 42 years younger. And that baby in her arms was... How did you find me? Miss Maria whispered. I've been looking for you for 20 years, Patricia said, sitting in the chair across from her. Since I turned 18 and had legal access to adoption records. But it was very difficult. You moved cities several times. Changed your name when you got married. I almost gave up. Until 3 days ago, a friend sent me a video. A video of a millionaire YouTuber who had disguised himself as homeless. And when I saw the woman who helped him, I recognized you. Miss Maria was crying now, heavily. How did you recognize me? Patricia also cried. The photo. My adoptive mother gave me this photo when I was little. She said my biological mother had left it with the social worker. And I looked at this photo millions of times in my life. I memorized every detail of your face. And when I saw you in that video, even 40 years later, I knew it was you. Miss Maria couldn't speak, just cried. I didn't come here to demand anything, Patricia said quickly. I didn't come to ask for money. I didn't come to ruin your life. I know you gave me up for adoption because you had no choice. I read the reports. You were 16. Your parents had kicked you out. You were living on the street. You had no way to raise a baby. You did the right thing. I didn't, Miss Maria sobbed. I didn't do the right thing. I abandoned you. You didn't abandon me, Patricia said firmly. You gave me a chance at a better life. I was adopted by a wonderful couple. I had education. I had love. I had opportunities. And today, I'm a doctor. I have a good life. And I don't hold any grudge against you. Then why did you come? Miss Maria asked. Because I needed to meet you, to look into your eyes, to tell you that I don't hate you, that I understand you, and that, Patricia took a deep breath, and that I love you. Even without knowing you, I love you. Because you're my mother. And when I saw you in that video giving your food to a stranger, I knew what kind of person you are. Generous, kind. Exactly the mother I always imagined I had. The two stood up at the same time and hugged. There, in that office, mother and daughter reunited after 42 years. Jimmy, who was at the door watching everything because Patricia had asked permission to enter, was also crying. They stayed hugged for long minutes, crying, releasing decades of pain and longing. When they finally separated, Miss Maria held Patricia's face with both hands. You're so beautiful, she said. So beautiful. You have your father's eyes. Do you remember him? Patricia asked. Miss Maria nodded. He was a boy from school. We were very young. When I found out I was pregnant, he got scared and disappeared. I never saw him again. It's okay, Patricia said. I don't need him. I just needed you. They sat down and talked for hours. Miss Maria told her whole story. How she got pregnant at 15. How her parents got furious and kicked her out of the house. How she lived on the street during pregnancy. How she slept in shelters. Went hungry. Was cold. How when the baby was born, the social worker said she could give her up for adoption. That the baby would have a good family. That she, at 16 and living on the street, had no way to raise a child. It was the hardest decision of my life, Miss Maria said to Patricia now. I held you in my arms at the hospital. I nursed you once. And then I handed you over. And I spent the last 42 years wondering if you were okay. If you were happy. If you had a good life. I did, Patricia assured. I had wonderful parents. They loved me as if I were their biological daughter. They gave me everything. And they were always honest about the adoption. They never hid it. And they always spoke of you with respect. They said you were very young and made the bravest decision a mother can make. Miss Maria cried more. And you? How was your life after? Miss Maria sighed. Difficult. Very difficult. I stayed on the street for a few more months. Then I got a job as a housekeeper. I slept at work. I saved money. I rented a tiny room. I continued working as a housekeeper for years. I met a good man. We got married. I had 2 more children. But I never forgot you. Never. Do I have 2 siblings? Patricia asked. You do. My son John is 38, and my daughter Anna is 35. Do they know about me? They know. They always knew they had an older sister I had to give up for adoption. And they always supported me when I said that one day I would try to find you. I would love to meet them, Patricia said. And if you accept, I would like to be part of your life from now on. Not to replace anything, not to change anything, just to be close. Miss Maria held Patricia's hands. Daughter, I spent 42 years praying for this moment. Of course I accept. Of course I want you in my life. Jimmy, still at the door, quietly left and called Marcus. "Man, you won't believe what just happened." And Jimmy made another video, telling about the reunion, showing with permission from Miss Maria and Patricia their meeting, explaining the whole story. The video was called, "The Janitor Who Helped the Homeless Man Reunited with Her Lost Daughter, and I Made It Happen." Another 80 million views, thousands of comments saying it was the most beautiful thing they had ever seen. And something magical started to happen. People from all over the world started making similar videos, disguising themselves as homeless, testing employees, testing friends, testing family. And in all the videos, it was always the most humble people who helped. It became a movement. The hashtag homeless test went viral, millions of people participating, and most importantly, millions of people starting to treat each other better. But let's go back to Miss Maria. In the following months, she adapted to the new position. With Jimmy's help and a coach, she learned the basics of computers. She learned to write reports. But most importantly, she used her experience, her empathy, her heart. She implemented a program at the company called Swap Day. Once a month, managers and directors had to spend a day doing the work of lower positions. The marketing manager became an office assistant for a day. The HR director became a receptionist. The IT coordinator became a cleaning assistant. And everyone learned to have empathy, to value every function, to treat everyone with respect. Employee satisfaction went from 60% to 95% in 6 months. Turnover dropped drastically, and the company became known as the best company to work for in America. Miss Maria also created a help fund. Every month, the company set aside part of the profits to help employees who were going through difficulties. Nobody had to be embarrassed. It was confidential, and it had already helped more than 50 families. And Patricia? She became part of the family. She met her siblings John and Anna. She met her nieces and nephews. She went to all the Sunday lunches at Miss Maria's house, and the two recovered 42 lost years. 1 year after the viral video, Jimmy threw a party at the company. It was the 1-year anniversary of the empathy revolution, as they called it. The whole team was there. The changes were visible. People from different departments talking, laughing together, respecting each other. Jimmy went up on stage. "A year ago," he said, "I did a test that changed this company and changed my life. But the person who really changed everything was Miss Maria." Miss Maria, on stage next to him, smiled. "And today I want to announce one more thing," Jimmy continued. "I'm creating the Maria Santos Institute of Empathy and Human Values, an institute that will give talks in schools, in companies, in organizations, teaching people to treat each other better. And who will lead this institute? Miss Maria." Thunderous applause. Miss Maria, already used to Jimmy's surprises, just thanked him from her heart. 3 years later, Miss Maria was in her apartment, the apartment Jimmy had given her. But now she didn't live alone. Patricia had moved in too, mother and daughter finally living together. It was Sunday, family lunch day. John and Anna arrived with their children, 7 grandchildren in total. The big table was set, home-cooked food, rice, beans, roasted chicken. The same simple food that Miss Maria had offered to the homeless man 3 years ago. Jimmy had also been invited. He went to every Sunday lunch. To him, Miss Maria was like a mother. During lunch, Miss Maria's youngest grandson, a 6-year-old boy, asked, "Grandma, is it true that you gave your food to a homeless man and he gave you an apartment?" Everyone laughed. Miss Maria stroked the boy's head. "Sort of like that, sweetheart. But I didn't give the food expecting to get anything. I gave it because it was the right thing to do. And what happened after was a gift from God." The boy thought, "So if I'm nice to everyone, will I get an apartment too?" More laughter. "It's not about getting things," Patricia explained to her son. "It's about doing good because it's right, not because you expect a reward." "Exactly," Miss Maria agreed. "And do you know what I got that was most valuable? It wasn't the apartment, it wasn't the position, it wasn't the salary, it was my daughter. And it was seeing so many people changing, treating others better. That's priceless." Jimmy raised his glass. "A toast," he said, "to Miss Maria, the woman who taught me the greatest lesson of my life. That character is seen not when the person can help you, but when you can do nothing for them." Everyone raised their glasses. "To Miss Maria." And so this story ends. A story about a test, about empathy, about character, but mainly about how a small gesture of kindness can change everything. Miss Maria didn't know that rainy morning that by offering her lunch container, she was changing not only her life, but the lives of thousands of people who saw that video and decided to be better. If you made it this far, I want to ask you something. Look around. Is there someone you're ignoring? Someone you treat as if they were invisible? The doorman of your building? The street cleaner? The person who cleans the bathroom at your work? The delivery person who brings your food? These people exist. They have names, they have stories, they have families, they have dreams, and they deserve, at the very least, a good morning, a smile, a sincere thank you. Because as Miss Maria showed, it costs nothing to be kind, and you never know when that small gesture will change someone's life, or your own. Leave in the comments, have you ever stopped to thank someone who's normally invisible? Tell us, and if this story moved you, share it, because maybe someone needs to hear this today. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for more stories that will touch you. A big hug. And remember, treat everyone well. Everyone deserves respect. Always. But going back to that specific day that changed everything. The rainy Thursday when Jimmy decided to do the test. After Miss Maria entered the building, Jimmy stayed there a few more minutes. He held that lunch container in his hands. He opened it slowly. The smell of homemade food rose to him. White rice, nice and fluffy. Beans seasoned with garlic and onion that you could smell even cold. 2 small pieces of chicken that Miss Maria must have roasted on Sunday and saved to eat during the week. A bit of tomato and lettuce salad. It was simple food, humble, but made with care. You could tell. The rice was well made. The beans were perfect. The chicken well seasoned. Miss Maria might not have money, but she knew how to cook. She knew how to make good food with little. Jimmy picked up the plastic fork she had given him, and he ate. Not because he was really hungry, but because he needed to feel. He needed to understand what this meant. Each forkful was a reflection. That woman who made $1,800 a month, who took 2 packed buses every day, who worked hard cleaning bathrooms that others dirtied, who was ignored by everyone, who was treated as invisible. This woman had just given her only lunch to a complete stranger, to a dirty, smelly homeless man sitting on the sidewalk, without thinking twice, without judging, without asking if he deserved it, just because it was the right thing to do. In the car parked 2 blocks away, Marcus had tears in his eyes. He had filmed everything. He had seen 53 employees passing by, ignoring, making disgusted faces, some even being cruel, and now he had seen this scene of pure kindness. He picked up the radio and spoke softly into the earpiece Jimmy was wearing hidden in his ear. "Man," he said with a choked voice, "what just happened was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life." Jimmy swallowed another forkful. He couldn't respond. The emotion was too strong. Marcus continued. 53 people walked past you, bro. 53. People who work for you. People you pay. People you promoted. People you helped. And none stopped. None. But this lady who makes next to nothing, who nobody respects, who everyone ignores, she stopped. She saw you. She treated you like a person. And she gave her food. The only food she had for the whole day. This is... Man, I have no words. Jimmy wiped a tear that ran under the fake beard. "I know," he whispered back. "I know." He finished eating in silence. He closed the empty container. He would return it to Miss Maria later. He wiped his mouth with the back of his dirty hand. And he sat there a few more minutes just thinking about everything he had seen, thinking about who he had become, thinking about who he wanted to be. At 10:15 in the morning, Jimmy stood up. His legs were stiff from sitting so long on the cold ground. His clothes were soaked from the rain. He was really cold now. He walked to a nearby alley where Marcus had left a bag with clean clothes hidden. He took off the wig, the fake beard. He cleaned his face as best he could with wet wipes. He took off those filthy clothes and put on normal jeans and a t-shirt. He threw everything in the bag. Marcus would get it later. Now Jimmy looked like himself again. Or at least he looked like it on the outside. Inside he was different, changed. What he had experienced in the last 2 hours had affected him in a way he hadn't imagined. He entered the company through the main entrance. Receptionist Clara was startled when she saw him. "Mr. Jimmy, my God, are you okay, sir? We were worried. You disappeared. Nobody knew where you were. And now you show up like this all..." She looked at his simple clothes, confused. "Everything's great, Clara," Jimmy said. "Couldn't be better." Can you call an emergency meeting? I want everyone in the auditorium in 30 minutes. All 200 employees. It's mandatory. But sir, there are very important meetings scheduled today, she protested. There's the presentation for the new client. There's the meeting with investors. There's... Cancel everything, Jimmy interrupted firmly. This here is more important than any meeting, any presentation, any client. This here is about who we are as a company, as people. Clara swallowed hard. She had never seen Jimmy so serious. Okay, sir, I'll notify everyone now. Jimmy went up to his office on the top floor. Marcus was already there. He had run. He had stopped at a public restroom on the way to clean the camera and transfer all the videos to the flash drive. Now he was connecting it to Jimmy's computer, transferring everything, organizing the images, preparing the presentation for the auditorium screen. Man, Marcus said while working, are you sure about this? Are you sure you want to show this to everyone? It's going to be heavy. There are people who are going to feel really bad. There are people who are going to get angry. I'm sure, Jimmy replied. I need to do this. I need them to see. I need them to understand. This company is losing its soul, Marcus. It's becoming just another company, full of fake people. People who are only nice to those who can give them something. That's not what I wanted to build. I know, man. I know. I've been seeing things changing too. But do you think a video will change that? Do you think showing them being bad will make them become better people? I don't know, Jimmy admitted. But I need to try. And I need to do justice for Miss Maria. That woman deserves to be recognized, deserves to be valued. And I'm going to do that today. Marcus finished preparing everything. He looked at his watch. 25 minutes. It's time. Shall we? Let's go. They went down together to the auditorium. There were already people arriving. Confused employees, talking quietly among themselves, trying to understand what was happening. Emergency meeting was never a good sign. It usually meant someone was going to be fired, or that the company had financial problems, or that something very bad had happened. The Tech Solution auditorium was large. It seated 300 people comfortably. It had upholstered chairs, air conditioning, a stage in front with a huge screen, professional sound system, everything first class. Little by little, the auditorium filled up. The marketing department came, sales, technology, design, finance, human resources, everyone. Many people sitting, many standing because there were no more chairs. The buzz was loud, people speculating about what it would be. Do you think they're going to fire people? I think so. They must be cutting costs. Is the company going bankrupt? I don't know. But Jimmy had a strange look. Miss Maria arrived last. She always arrived last at everything, because she thought she didn't deserve to be in front, that her place was in the back, quiet, not bothering anyone. She entered very slowly, tried to find an empty corner. She found a little space standing way in the back. She leaned against the wall, and she waited like everyone else. At 10:45, Jimmy went up on stage. Marcus stayed operating the computer that controlled the screen. The buzz stopped immediately. Everyone looked forward. Jimmy was dressed simply, jeans, t-shirt, nothing formal like he normally wore, his hair a bit messy still from the wig. A very serious expression. Good morning, everyone, he began, his voice echoing in the sound system. I know you're wondering why this last-minute meeting, why we canceled everything, why this is so urgent. Absolute silence. This morning, Jimmy continued, I did an experiment, a test. Some of you might think it was cruel, others will understand. But I needed to know. I needed to find out what kind of people work here with me. He paused. Let the tension build. Because you know, this company didn't start big. It started small, very small. There were 5 people in a tiny office. Me, Marcus, Julia, Peter, and Miss Maria. He pointed to the back where Miss Maria was. She turned red. She wasn't expecting to be mentioned. Back then, Jimmy continued, we were a family. For real. We had lunch together. We talked about life. We helped each other when someone had a problem. We really cared about each other. There was no boss and employee thing. We were all equal, all working for the same dream. He looked around. But then the company grew. And that's good. Growth is good. More employees is good. Success is good. But something got lost along the way. Something important. People started shifting uncomfortably in their seats. And what got lost was empathy. It was respect. It was humanity. I've been seeing things here that make me very sad. Very much so. I see managers treating interns badly, yelling, humiliating, using power to intimidate. I see coordinators being rude to cleaning staff, talking as if they were superior, as if someone's job determined their value as a person. The auditorium was tense now. I see people being fake, smiling to the boss's faces but talking behind their backs, stabbing colleagues in the back to get promoted, gossiping, creating drama. And that makes me feel terrible. Because that's not what I created this company for. He took a deep breath. So this morning I decided to do a test. I wanted to see who here really has the values this company should represent. I wanted to see who treats people well, not because they're important, but simply because they're people. He gestured to Marcus, who turned on the screen. The giant screen lit up. I dressed up as a homeless person, Jimmy said. The audience's eyes widened, gasps through the auditorium, and I sat at the door of our company for 2 hours, from 8:40 to 10:40, asking for help, asking for food, asking for anything. The first images appeared on the screen. Jimmy sitting on the ground, dirty, torn clothes, fake beard, completely unrecognizable, extending his trembling hand. Many people in the auditorium put their hands to their mouths. Some already started to understand where this was going, and they were scared. In those 2 hours, Jimmy continued, 53 of you walked past me, 53 people who work at this company, who receive salaries that I pay, who use the benefits we offer, who come to our celebrations, who say they love working here. The images started to pass, one by one, showing each employee arriving, passing by the homeless man, ignoring. Jimmy had asked Marcus to edit it by putting each person's name on the screen. Andrew, sales, Philip, sales, Luke, sales. The three walking straight past, talking about football, not even looking at the homeless man. Beatrice, HR, Camilla, HR. The two making disgusted faces, visibly grossed out. He's probably on drugs, Camilla's voice echoed in the audio that the hidden camera had captured. In the auditorium, Beatrice and Camilla were mortified. They wanted to disappear. Julia, Chief Financial Officer, walking straight past without even looking. Julia in the auditorium started crying softly from shame. Peter, Editor-in-Chief, walking straight past. Peter lowered his head. Renata, Creative Coordinator, walking straight past. Renata closed her eyes. And so it went, one after another. 53 people. 53 times Jimmy being ignored, treated as if he were invisible, as if he didn't exist. Until it got to Tiago's part. Tiago, Marketing Manager. The video showed him stopping. For a moment it seemed like he would help, but then the camera captured what he said. Dude, I work. I wake up early, deal with traffic, work 8 hours a day. You should do the same instead of sitting there begging. Go get a job, bum. In the auditorium, Tiago wanted to die. He sank so deep in his chair he almost disappeared. Some people looked at him with contempt. 53 people, Jimmy said. And do you know how many stopped to help? How many looked at me as if I were a human being? How many offered a kind word? Some food? A coin? Anything? Heavy silence. 0, Jimmy said. None. Not one. People started to shift, some crying, others with their heads down in shame, others angry because they were being exposed. But there was one person, Jimmy said, and his voice changed. It became softer, more emotional. One single person who stopped. The screen showed Miss Maria appearing, walking slowly down the sidewalk, with the cheap plastic rain cape, the old cloth bag. And that person, Jimmy continued, wasn't any manager who makes $15,000 a month. Wasn't any director who makes $25,000. Wasn't any coordinator, any senior analyst, any of these people with fancy titles and fat salaries. It was Miss Maria, our janitor, who makes minimum wage and a half. The video continued. Miss Maria stopping, looking at the homeless man, approaching. Good morning. Her voice sounded gentle in the audio. Are you okay, sir? The people in the auditorium were mesmerized, watching. The whole dialogue was shown. Miss Maria asking if he was okay. Jimmy saying he was hungry, that it had been 2 days since he'd eaten. Miss Maria genuinely concerned. Getting her lunch container, offering without thinking twice. "Look, sir, I brought my lunch from home. It's nothing fancy. It's very simple, but it's real food made with care. Do you want it?" Her voice in the video was so sweet, so genuine. When it showed her extending the container, half the auditorium was crying. The other half had their heads down in shame. The conversation continued in the video. Miss Maria saying she could buy a sandwich at the coffee shop, that the homeless man needed it more than her. Miss Maria talking about how she treated everyone the same, about her mother's teachings, about how it didn't matter how much money the person had. What mattered was the heart. When the video ended, the silence in the auditorium was sepulchral. "This woman," Jimmy said, pointing to the back where Miss Maria was leaning against the wall. "This woman that many of you ignore every day, that many of you don't even know her name, that many of you treat as if she were invisible. This woman has more character, more empathy, more humanity than all the fancy degrees and certificates we have here." Miss Maria was crying, not from sadness, but from emotion, from being recognized, from being seen. "This company," Jimmy continued, "was founded on values: generosity, empathy, respect, humility. But I see now that many of you have forgotten those values, or maybe never had them." He paused. "And that changes today. Now, starting this moment, we're going to make deep changes in this company. First change," he raised a finger. "All managers and directors, without exception, will go through mandatory training on empathy and human values. It will be conducted by specialized professionals. It won't be that fake weekend training. It will be serious, intense. You'll learn to treat people with respect, or you'll look for a job somewhere else." Second change, another finger. "We're implementing a 360-degree evaluation system. Everyone evaluates everyone. Position doesn't matter. The intern will evaluate the manager. The janitor will evaluate the director. Everyone. And these evaluations will weigh on promotions and bonuses. If you don't know how to treat people well at all levels, you don't move up in this company. Period." Third change, another finger. Any case at all, of disrespect toward any employee of any level will result in a serious warning. And repeat offense is immediate dismissal, no matter how good you are technically, no matter how much money you generate for the company. If you don't know how to treat people well, you don't belong in this company. People were in shock, some agreeing, others scared. "And fourth change," Jimmy said, "we're creating a culture and values committee. And the person who will chair this committee will be responsible for ensuring that everyone here treats everyone with respect and dignity." He looked to the back. "Miss Maria, can you come up front, please?" Miss Maria froze. No, she thought. It can't be. "Come on, Miss Maria," Jimmy encouraged. "Please." With trembling legs, Miss Maria started walking. The sea of people opened for her to pass, everyone watching. She went up on stage, completely lost, understanding nothing. Jimmy took her hand. "Miss Maria," he said loudly for everyone to hear, "you've worked here since day one of this company. 5 years. When we were just 5 people in a small office. You've always been dedicated, always been honest, always had a smile on your face even when things were difficult." Miss Maria could only nod. "And today," Jimmy continued, "you taught me a lesson I'll never forget. You reminded me why I created this company. It wasn't to make money. It wasn't to become famous. It was to make a difference in people's lives, to create a place where people were treated well, with dignity, with respect. You, with such a simple gesture, showed more character than all the MBAs and graduate degrees we have here." He took an envelope he had prepared. "Therefore, I'm promoting you. Starting today, you're no longer a janitor. You're the new Director of Culture and Human Values at Tech Solution." Shocked gasps echoed through the auditorium. Miss Maria almost fainted. Her legs failed. Jimmy held her. "Mr. Jimmy," she stammered, "I don't understand. I'm just a janitor. I don't have education. I barely finished middle school. I don't know how to use computers properly. I don't know how to make presentations. How am I going to be a director?" "You'll learn," Jimmy said gently. "And look, your job won't be using computers or making spreadsheets. It will be ensuring that everyone here, absolutely everyone, treats everyone with respect, that nobody is invisible, that nobody is less than anyone. And if there's one person in this company who knows how to do that, it's you." Tears fell from Miss Maria's face. "And there's more." Jimmy took another envelope. "Your new salary will be $15,000 a month." Miss Maria sobbed loudly. 15,000? Mr. Jimmy, that's more than 8 times what I make. You deserve it, Jimmy said. You deserve that and much more. And it's not over yet. He took a third envelope. This here is a purchase contract for an apartment. 2 bedrooms, living room, kitchen, bathroom. In the neighborhood you choose. Fully paid off. No financing, no installments, nothing. In your name. So you never have to pay rent again and can live with dignity. Miss Maria couldn't take it. She fell to her knees right there on stage, sobbing, shaking, unable to believe it. Jimmy knelt beside her, hugged her. You changed my life today, he whispered in her ear, but the microphone caught it. You reminded me that there are still good people in the world. You reminded me why I do what I do. Thank you. Thank you so much. The entire auditorium stood up and started applauding. Some applauded with genuine emotion because they understood the message. Others applauded from shame, embarrassed by what they had done. Others applauded with tears in their eyes, realizing how much they had failed as human beings. The applause lasted 5 minutes. When it finally stopped, Miss Maria managed to stand up. She looked at all those employees and said something nobody expected. I accept the promotion, she said with a firm voice despite the tears. I accept the salary. And I accept the apartment. And I swear to God, I'm going to be the best values director you've ever seen. I'm going to make this place become a family again. Applause again. But I want to say something to all of you, she continued. And now her voice was stronger, more determined. I'm not better than anyone here. I'm not smarter. I'm not more qualified. I just did what any person with a good heart would do. I treated another human being with respect, with dignity. And that's what I expect from all of you from now on. Not just with me, but with everyone. With the intern, with the office assistant, with whoever cleans the bathroom you use, with whoever prepares the food you eat, with whoever delivers the food you order, with everyone. Everyone deserves respect. Everyone deserves to be seen. Everyone. The applause now was deafening. Even the employees who had been exposed were applauding, some with shame, others with admiration, others with determination to change. The meeting ended, but that day marked the company forever. That same night, Jimmy sat in his office. It was almost midnight. Marcus was with him. They started editing the video. They took the best parts, the montage of the 53 employees ignoring, the cruelest moments, and that beautiful scene of Miss Maria helping. The revelation in the auditorium. The promotion, the apartment, everything. They edited for 6 hours. When they finished, it was 6 in the morning on Friday. Jimmy posted it on his channel. Simple but powerful title, I disguised myself as homeless to test my employees. The result shocked me. In 2 hours, the video had 2 million views. In 6 hours, it had 10 million. In 12 hours, it had 20 million. In 24 hours, it had 40 million. In 48 hours, it had 60 million. In 72 hours, it had 80 million. It became the most viewed video on the channel. It was on all the news, on TV, on websites around the world. The story of the janitor who offered lunch to the homeless man and got an apartment went around the globe. And the comments. My God, the comments. There were hundreds of thousands. I cried buckets watching this. Miss Maria deserves the whole world. I'm going to start treating people better after this video. This restored my faith in humanity. I wish I had a Miss Maria in my life. What a blessed company to have someone like this. This video should be mandatory in schools. And then something started that Jimmy never imagined. People from all over the world started doing the same test, disguising themselves as homeless, testing employees, testing friends, testing family, and posting the videos. Always, it was the most humble people who helped. It became a movement. The homeless test hashtag started going viral. Millions of people using it, millions of people participating, millions of people starting to rethink how they treated others. But Jimmy and Miss Maria's story wasn't over yet. The best was still to come, and nobody, absolutely nobody expected it. 3 days after the video was posted, on a Monday morning, Miss Maria was in her new office, an office on the same floor as the executives, with a big window with a nice view, noble wood desk, comfortable ergonomic chair. New computer still in the box because she didn't even know how to turn it on properly. Plants in the corner, pictures on the wall. She was sitting there still not believing all this was real, that she had an office, that she was a director, that she made $15,000 a month. that she had an apartment in her name. It seemed like a dream. There was a knock on the door. "Excuse me, Miss Maria?" a female voice said. "Come in," Miss Maria replied. The door opened. A woman entered. She must have been in her early 40s. Well-groomed black hair, elegant, expensive clothes, discreet but perfect makeup, designer purse. But her eyes were red like someone who had been crying a lot. "Excuse me," the woman said again. "Are you Miss Maria?" "I am. How can I help you?" The woman closed the door behind her, stood there, trembling, as if gathering courage. "My name is Patricia," she finally said. "Patricia Alves. Nice to meet you, Patricia. Please sit down." The woman sat in the chair across from the desk, put her purse on her lap, took a deep breath, and then said the words that would make Miss Maria's world stop. "Miss Maria, I'm your daughter." Miss Maria felt the floor disappear. "What?" The woman started crying. "I'm your daughter. The daughter you had to give up for adoption when you were 16 years old, 42 years ago." Miss Maria put both hands to her mouth, eyes wide. "It can't be." "It can," Patricia said, and she took a folder with documents from her purse. "I brought my birth certificate, the adoption papers, and this." She took out an old photo, yellowed with time, and placed it on the desk. Miss Maria took the photo with uncontrollably trembling hands. It was a photo taken in a hospital. A 16-year-old girl, very thin, sitting on a hospital bed, holding a newborn baby wrapped in a light blue blanket. The girl had a child's face still, scared eyes. But she was looking at the baby with so much love. And that girl in the photo was her, Miss Maria, 42 years younger, and that baby in her arms was... "How did you find me?" Miss Maria whispered, still looking at the photo. Tears starting to fall. "I've been looking for you for 20 years, Patricia said, also crying, "since I turned 18 and had legal access to adoption records. But it was very difficult. You moved cities several times over the years, changed your name when you got married. The records were confusing, incomplete. I hired a private investigator. I spent all the money I had, but I couldn't find you. I almost gave up. I thought I would never meet you." She wiped her tears. "Until 3 days ago, a friend sent me a video of a millionaire YouTuber who had disguised himself as homeless. And when I saw the woman who helped him, when I saw your face, I knew right away." "How did you know?" Miss Maria asked. "This photo." Patricia took the photo back. "My adoptive mother gave me this when I was 7 years old. She told me I was adopted, and she gave me this photo saying my biological mother had left it with the social worker. It was the only thing I had of you. I looked at this photo every day of my life, every day. I memorized every detail of your face, the shape of your eyes, the way your nose curves, your smile, everything. And when I saw you in that video, even though you were 42 years older, I recognized you. I knew it was you." Miss Maria was sobbing now, couldn't control it. "I came here," Patricia continued, "not to demand anything, not to ask for an explanation, not to judge you. I know from the social worker, from the records, that you gave me up for adoption because you had no choice. You were 16 years old. Your parents had kicked you out. You were living on the street, pregnant, alone. No money, no job, nothing. You had no way to raise a baby in that situation." Miss Maria shook her head. "I should have found a way, should have fought harder, should have..." "You did the right thing," Patricia interrupted firmly. "You made the bravest and most difficult decision a mother can make. You gave me up for adoption so I could have a better life. And I did." She smiled through tears. "I was adopted by a wonderful couple, Carlos and Regina. They loved me as if I were their biological daughter. They gave me everything: education, affection, opportunities. They encouraged me to study. They helped me go to medical school. Today I'm a doctor, a pediatrician. I have my own practice. I have a good life, a life I never would have had if you had tried to raise me in an impossible situation." "So you hate me?" Miss Maria asked, her voice broken. "Hate you?" Patricia seemed shocked. "I love you. I've always loved you, even without knowing you. You're my mother, and I came here to tell you that I don't hold any grudge, that I understand you, that I forgive you for anything you think needs forgiving, and mainly to tell you that when I saw you in that video giving your only food to a homeless man, I knew exactly what kind of person you are. Generous, kind, big-hearted. The mother I always imagined I had." The two stood up at the same time and hugged. There, in that office, 42 years of longing and pain dissolved in a tight embrace. Mother and daughter finally together. They cried for long minutes, couldn't let go of each other. Jimmy, who had been warned by Patricia that she would come, was at the door watching, crying too. It was too beautiful. When they finally separated, they sat again and started talking. Hours and hours of conversation, recovering 4 lost decades. Miss Maria told her whole story, how she got pregnant at 15, how the boy who was the father got scared and disappeared, how her parents, very religious and strict, got furious, had said she brought shame to the family, had kicked her out of the house, literally thrown her on the street. At 15 and pregnant, she told how she lived on the street during the 9 months of pregnancy, sleeping on park benches when it was hot, sleeping in shelters when it was cold, eating what she could, sometimes begging, sometimes doing odd jobs, but always hungry, always scared, always alone. She told about the day the baby was born. She was on the street when contractions started. A lady saw her feeling sick, called an ambulance. They took her to the public hospital. She gave birth alone, no family, nobody. When the nurse put the baby in her arms, a beautiful little girl with pink skin and closed eyes, Miss Maria fell in love instantly. She wanted to keep her, wanted to raise her somehow. But the hospital social worker came to talk, explained the situation. "Maria, you're 16 years old. You have no family, no home, no job, no money. How are you going to raise this baby? She'll go hungry, she'll get sick, she might even die. But if you give her up for adoption, she'll have a good family, parents who really want a child, who will give her everything, education, health, love. Do you want the best for your daughter?" The social worker had a list of couples waiting to adopt. Good families, with means. Miss Maria had held the baby for a whole day, had nursed her once, had looked at that little sleeping face and felt a love so big it hurt, and then she made the hardest decision of her life. She signed the papers. She handed over the baby. She left the hospital without her. "It was the worst pain of my life," Miss Maria told Patricia now. "Worse than anything I've ever been through. I left that hospital and spent 2 weeks without eating properly, without sleeping, just crying, wondering if I had done the right thing, wondering if you would grow up thinking I didn't love you, if you would hate me. And you spent the next 42 years thinking about me?" Patricia asked. "Every day," Miss Maria admitted. "Every single day without exception. I wondered if you were okay, if you were happy, if you had a good life, if your adoptive parents treated you well. I prayed every night that you were okay." "And I was," Patricia assured. "I was and I am. My parents, Carlos and Regina, loved me very much. They gave me everything, and they were always honest about the adoption, never hid it. Since I was little, they told me that my biological mother was very young and didn't have the means to raise me, that she made a brave decision, that she loved me so much she gave me to those who could give me a better life. They always spoke of you with great respect." Miss Maria cried more. "And you? Your life after? How was it?" Miss Maria sighed. "Difficult. Very difficult. I stayed on the street for a few more months after you were born, until I got a job as a housekeeper. I slept at work, worked 7 days a week. I saved money. I rented a tiny room. I kept working as a housekeeper. I met a good man, Joseph. We got married. I had 2 more children, John and Anna." "Do they know about me?" Patricia asked. "They know. They always knew they had an older sister I had to give up for adoption. And they always supported me when I said that one day I would try to find you. I would love to meet them," Patricia said. "And if you accept, I would like to be part of your life from now on, not to replace anything. My adoptive parents are still alive and they're wonderful. But to have you too, to have my biological mother, to have my siblings, to have a bigger family." Miss Maria held Patricia's hands. "Daughter, I spent 42 years dreaming of this moment. Of course I accept. Of course I want you in my life. More than anything." And that's how after 42 years, mother and daughter reunited. All because of a viral video, of a YouTuber who disguised himself as homeless, of a janitor who offered a simple lunch container, and proved that small gestures of kindness can change the entire world. And if you made it this far in this story, Thank you very much. From the bottom of my heart. This was one of the most beautiful stories we've ever told. And its message is simple but powerful. Treat everyone well. Everyone. It doesn't matter if the person is rich or poor, important or not, powerful or invisible. Treat everyone with respect, with dignity, with kindness, because you never know when that small gesture will change a life, or even save one. Leave in the comments what you thought of this story. Which part moved you most? If you've been through something similar, if you know someone like Miss Maria, and share this video. Because maybe there's someone who needs to hear this today. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our stories. A huge heartfelt hug. And always remember, everyone, absolutely everyone, deserves respect. Always.